It was supposed to be an ordinary evening in Maplewood. The streets glistened under the light drizzle, the kind of rain that made suburban lawns sparkle and the scent of wet asphalt linger in the air. Claire Bennett locked her front door and stepped onto the porch, feeling the familiar comfort of routine. Her husband, Mark, was already inside, or so she assumed, absorbed in his work in the study. Everything appeared normal. The soft glow of lamps, the muted hum of the refrigerator, the gentle ticking of the wall clock. But Claire had begun noticing small, subtle cracks in their perfect life. A lingering glance from Mark that seemed too guarded, a phone screen he would abruptly turn away from her, the faint scent of cologne that wasn't hers drifting through the house. She shook off the unease, blaming fatigue, the stress of her own job at the law firm. Yet tonight, something felt different. A tension she couldn't shake, a sense that the house itself was holding its breath. She wandered into the kitchen to make tea, the sound of the kettle filling the silence. As the water boiled, she caught sight of a small, metallic glint on the edge of Mark's desk in the study. Curious, she walked over. Nestled among papers was a key she had never seen before, delicate but unusual, engraved with a symbol she couldn't recognize. Her heart skipped a beat. "Where did this come from?" she murmured, half to herself, half hoping Mark would appear and explain. Mark's footsteps echoed in the hallway before he entered, coffee in hand, wearing his usual calm smile. "What are you looking at?" he asked. Claire held up the key, feeling a sudden flush of fear. "It's this key. I don't remember seeing it before." Mark's brow furrowed, and for a moment she saw a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "It's nothing," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Just something from work. I'll explain later." Claire nodded, but the reassurance felt hollow. Her mind began to race. Why would he hide something as simple as a key? And what did the symbol mean? Questions stacked like bricks, pressing down, heavy and insistent. She forced herself to let it go. For now. Perhaps it was just an old locker key, a keepsake, a meaningless trinket. The evening passed with an eerie quiet, punctuated only by the occasional hum of a passing car outside. Claire sat on the couch, sipping her tea, watching the rain slide down the windowpane. Memories of their early marriage surfaced, the laughter, the late-night drives, the whispered promises in the dark. Could all of that be a facade? Could Mark, the man she had trusted completely, be living a life she never knew? Then, a sound broke the momentary calm. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Claire's fingers trembled as she opened it. "Some things are better left undiscovered." A shiver ran down her spine. The words were vague but chilling, and the source anonymous. Her gaze drifted back to the key in her hand. She felt an unsettling certainty for the first time in years. Something in her home, in her marriage, was not as it seemed. Claire put the key back on the desk, but her thoughts would not rest. She knew that tonight, the life she believed was perfect had begun to crack. Somewhere in the shadows of their suburban house, secrets waited, patient and dangerous, ready to emerge. And she had just taken her first step toward them. The rain tapped harder against the windows, echoing the growing tension in her chest, as if the house itself was warning her. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed again. The house had grown quieter, heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Claire sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched tea in front of her. The rain had eased, leaving a damp, misty stillness outside, but inside, tension clung to the air. She clutched the mysterious key in her hand, turning it over, letting its cold weight ground her racing thoughts. Finally, she heard the soft creak of Mark's study door. He stepped out, rubbing his eyes, and offered her a tired smile. "You still up?" he asked, his voice casual, but Claire detected a strain in it, something he was trying to hide. "I can't sleep," she admitted. And I can't stop thinking about this key. She set it on the table, her eyes locked on him. Where did it come from, Mark? For a moment, he hesitated. His jaw tightened, and his fingers twitched as though he were wrestling with an invisible force. Claire, he started, then stopped. He ran a hand through his hair and finally sank into the chair across from her. I guess you deserve the truth. At least, some of it. Claire leaned forward, heart pounding, feeling the mix of fear and relief that he might finally confess. I just want honesty. No more secrets, Mark. Please. He exhaled sharply, like he had been holding a breath for years. It's complicated. That key, the things I've been doing, it's not just about an affair. His words were careful, measured, but the weight behind them was undeniable. Claire's stomach tightened. Not just an affair? She whispered, though a part of her had suspected it. Memories of late nights when he was supposedly working, the distant phone calls, the unexplained trips, they all rushed back. Then what is it, Mark? He hesitated, eyes darting to the floor, then back up, meeting hers with a conflicted gaze. I didn't want you to know like this. I thought I could control it, keep it hidden. But it's bigger than us, Claire. There are people involved, things I can't explain without putting us at risk. Claire's chest tightened. Her mind struggled to process his words, fear and betrayal intermingling. People? What do you mean? Are we in danger? Mark's lips pressed into a thin line. He shook his head slowly. I don't think so. Not yet. But there's something you need to know. Something that's been going on long before us. Long before you suspected a thing. And I was wrong to hide it from you. Claire's hands trembled as she reached for his. Mark, please. I can handle the truth. I need the truth. He looked at her, the conflict in his eyes raw and unguarded. There's a place, a location, not far from here. Things happen there, things I was involved with. It's the only reason I've been secretive. I can't explain everything now, but I can show you if you're ready. The room seemed to shrink, the shadows lengthening across the walls. Claire felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. The key on the table gleamed faintly under the kitchen light, like it was calling her forward. I don't know if I'm ready, Mark, she whispered, voice trembling. But a part of her knew she had no choice. The secrets were too close, too dangerous to ignore. Mark reached across and covered her hand with his. I promise, I'll explain everything. But you have to trust me. At least for now. Outside, the wind picked up again, rattling the windows. Claire's eyes fell on the key one more time. Something told her that whatever it unlocked would change everything. And in that quiet, tension-filled house, the first door into Mark's secret life had been nudged open, just enough to glimpse the darkness beyond. The next morning, Maplewood seemed unchanged, almost serene, as if the previous night's tension had been nothing more than a dream. But Claire felt different. The key burned in the back of her mind like a silent warning, and Mark's vague confessions gnawed at her thoughts. She busied herself with work, trying to maintain a facade of normalcy, yet every creak of the floorboards and flicker of light in the hallway reminded her that their house was no longer just a home. It was a puzzle, and she didn't yet know all the pieces. That afternoon, as Claire glanced out the window to clear her mind, she noticed activity next door. A moving truck was parked in front of the house she had passed countless times without a second thought. Boxes were being carried in, and a woman stepped onto the porch, looking both exhausted and exhilarated. She was tall, with sharp features softened by warm brown eyes, and her presence exuded a quiet confidence that Claire found oddly unsettling. The woman caught Claire's gaze and offered a polite smile. "Hi, I'm Lisa. Just moved in," she said, her voice casual but direct. There was something in her tone, a subtle insistence, as if she already knew more about the neighborhood, and maybe even its residents, than she should. "Claire," she replied, forcing her own smile. "Welcome to Maplewood." Lisa nodded once and turned back to the boxes, but Claire couldn't shake the feeling that this stranger was more than just a new neighbor. Over the next few days, Lisa seemed to appear at unexpected moments, walking her dog near Claire's house, browsing at the local grocery store, even running into Claire at the coffee shop. Every encounter was polite, yet unnervingly precise, as though Lisa knew exactly what to say and when. One evening, Claire found herself on her porch, sipping tea and watching the rain begin to fall again. Lisa appeared across the street, carrying a stack of mail. She waved casually, then hesitated, tilting her head slightly. "You know," she said, lowering her voice just enough that Claire had to lean closer to hear, "sometimes the people closest to us aren't exactly who they seem." Claire froze. Her heart thudded against her ribs. She wanted to dismiss the comment as idle chatter, a harmless warning from a friendly neighbor. But something in Lisa's eyes, sharp and knowing, made Claire's blood run cold. She felt exposed, as though her fears about Mark's secrets had been seen and catalogued by this stranger without her permission. The next day, Claire arrived home from work to find a small, unmarked package on her porch. It was light, yet somehow heavy with implication. She opened it cautiously and froze. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, showing Claire herself, taken at moments she hadn't realized anyone could have seen. Her jogging route, her office parking lot, even through the windows of her own home. The handwriting on the back of one photo was neat but unfamiliar. "Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. Watch carefully." Claire's hands trembled as she dropped the photographs onto the kitchen counter. She glanced at the key, lying innocently next to the stack, its small metallic surface suddenly sinister in the dim light. Mark would know nothing about these pictures, she realized, and the thought that someone outside their household had been observing her, tracking her, was terrifying. Fear and suspicion churned in her stomach. Lisa's casual warning now seemed like a veiled threat, and Claire couldn't shake the certainty that her life had just been invaded in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. She looked toward the street, half expecting to see the stranger watching, waiting, calculating. Somewhere in the quiet neighborhood, secrets were colliding. And Claire understood, with a growing sense of dread, that this stranger next door might know more about Mark and about the hidden life in her own house than even he could admit. As the evening shadows deepened, Claire held the photographs in her hands, the weight of their silent warning pressing down on her. The key on the counter gleamed under the kitchen light, beckoning. One thought consumed her. To uncover the truth, she would have to follow the trail, one step further into a darkness she couldn't yet measure. The rain had stopped, leaving the night air crisp and heavy with the scent of wet leaves. Claire couldn't sleep. The photographs from the stranger next door pressed into her mind like a living weight. Her bedroom felt suddenly unfamiliar, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting long, twisting shadows across the walls. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the house seemed louder, sharper, as though amplifying the tension that had taken root in her chest. She stared at the key on the dresser, its small metal surface catching the light, beckoning her. Something told her it wasn't just a key. It was a doorway into Mark's hidden world. Her curiosity had always been tempered by trust, but now that trust had shattered, replaced with a gnawing, urgent need to know the truth. Quietly, she slipped from bed, careful not to wake Mark. The house was still, but her senses were heightened. She noticed every small detail. The faint outline of his shoes by the door, the half-empty coffee mug on the counter, the soft hum of the refrigerator like a distant heartbeat. Her gaze drifted to the study door, and then back to the bedroom itself. Something felt off. Claire's eyes landed on the corner of the room she rarely noticed, a small, barely noticeable seam in the wall near the wardrobe. Her heart skipped. Could this be one of Mark's secrets? She approached slowly, her hands brushing against the cold walls. Behind the wardrobe, she found a narrow panel, its edges worn from frequent handling. Her breath caught as she slid the key into the lock, engraved with the same mysterious symbol. Click. The panel opened with a soft groan, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside were envelopes, notebooks, and a small digital recorder. Claire's hands shook as she sifted through them. The letters were coded, filled with names, addresses, and cryptic instructions. One notebook contained detailed accounts of late-night meetings, financial transactions, and dates she didn't recognize. The recorder hummed softly, as though holding its breath, waiting for her to press play. Her fingers hovered over the button, but hesitation held her back. Every instinct screamed that some of these secrets could be dangerous, that uncovering them could change everything she knew about Mark and about herself. Finally, she pressed play. A familiar voice filled the room. Mark's, calm but firm, speaking in hushed tones with someone on the other end. Yes, she has no idea. I've kept it hidden, but it's only a matter of time before she notices. Claire froze, the sound of her husband's voice, layered with secrecy, sending a chill down her spine. The conversation hinted at things far more serious than an affair. Transactions, hidden meetings, people whose names meant nothing to her yet implied danger. Her mind raced to piece together the fragments she had already discovered: the key, the stranger next door, the photographs, the cryptic voicemail. A sudden sound made her spin around. The bedroom door creaked. Her pulse quickened. For a moment she thought it was Mark, returning unexpectedly. But the door was empty. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, reaching across the walls like fingers. Claire realized she wasn't alone in this search. Something, or someone, was waiting for her to uncover too much. Her gaze fell back on the key and the hidden compartment. Each item she held now felt heavier, loaded with unseen consequences. She understood that. Tonight had changed everything. There was no turning back. And then, tucked at the bottom of the compartment, she found it. A folded photograph, recent, unmistakably of a young woman standing at the edge of their driveway, staring directly at the house. Claire recognized her face. It was a stranger, yet intimately connected to Mark's secrets. The shadows in the bedroom seemed to grow darker, pressing in on her. Claire's hand tightened around the photograph. The truth was closer than she had ever imagined, but with each revelation, the danger grew. The night was no longer just quiet. It was charged with anticipation, and Claire realized, with a growing sense of dread, that the hidden room was only the beginning. Claire sat in her car outside the Maplewood Community Church, staring at the familiar brick facade bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. She had never felt uneasy here before. The church had always been a place of comfort, a sanctuary of routine and whispered prayers. But tonight, its windows seemed darker, more secretive, as if hiding truths the congregation would rather forget. The photograph she had found in Mark's hidden compartment weighed heavily in her hand, the young woman's face staring back at her like a silent accusation. The thought that Mark's secret life could extend into the church made her stomach twist. She had trusted him implicitly, trusted that the man she married would never involve himself in something dangerous or morally corrupt. But every discovery in the past weeks had chipped away at that trust, leaving her unsure of what reality even looked like anymore. And if Mark's secrets touched this place, then perhaps the community she thought she knew was only a carefully constructed facade. Claire took a deep breath and stepped inside, her shoes echoing softly against the polished tile floor. The sanctuary was empty, the rows of pews gleaming under the dim lights. Candles flickered along the altar, casting wavering shadows that danced across the walls. The silence was unsettling. She walked slowly toward the back, careful to appear as if she were merely taking a late-night contemplative stroll, but every nerve in her body screamed that she was intruding into something she was not meant to see. It was then that she heard the faint murmur of voices from the side chapel, barely audible but distinct. She crept closer, pressing herself against the wall, straining to hear. Two voices, one male, one female, whispered urgently. "She can't know. Not yet. Everything we've built will collapse if she finds out," the man said. Claire's pulse quickened. She recognized the tone, the voice. Mark. And the woman. She didn't know, but the words made it clear that their conversation involved more than an affair. It involved deception, manipulation, and perhaps something even darker. "I'm worried about her," the woman replied. "She's already asking questions. If she digs too deep, there's no telling what she'll discover." The way they spoke, the careful, measured tones, made Claire's skin crawl. Secrets were being whispered in the very walls of a place she had once considered sacred. Secrets that could shatter not only her marriage, but the lives of everyone involved. She backed away, heart pounding, and nearly collided with a familiar figure. Pastor Whitman. He smiled warmly, oblivious to her inner turmoil. "Claire," he said, his voice smooth, practiced. "I didn't expect anyone at this hour." Claire forced a casual smile. "Just couldn't sleep. Needed some air." She clenched the photograph in her hand, pressing it into her coat pocket. "I guess some things can't wait until morning." Pastor Whitman nodded, his eyes lingering a fraction longer than expected. There was a subtle tension in his gaze that Claire hadn't noticed before, as if he knew more than he was letting on. He felt a flicker of fear. Someone else in the church might already be aware of Mark's secret life, watching, waiting for the right moment. As she left the church, the night felt colder, the shadows longer. Every step toward her car echoed the unspoken truth. The sanctuary was no longer a place of comfort. It was a place of whispers, of hidden agendas, of forbidden knowledge. Driving home, Claire's mind raced, trying to piece together fragments of the puzzle. The key, the hidden room, the stranger next door, the photographs, and now this, whispers in a place she had trusted. She realized that Mark's life outside their home had ramifications far beyond what she could have imagined. And somewhere, lurking in the quiet corners of Maplewood, the next secret waited. One that would push Claire even closer to the edge, and into a darkness she might not be able to escape. The rain had returned, pounding against the windows with an insistence that matched Claire's racing heartbeat. Inside the house, silence hung thick, broken only by the occasional creak of floorboards as she moved cautiously through the rooms. The photographs from the stranger, the whispers at the church, Mark's cryptic confessions, all of it had left her restless, haunted, desperate for answers. Tonight, she decided, she would follow the path the key had started. She had to know the full extent of Mark's secrets. She crept into the basement, the dim light from a single bulb casting long, twisting shadows across the unfinished walls. The air was damp, musty, carrying the faint scent of mildew and old wood. Her fingers brushed along the edges of shelves and boxes, stopping only when they found the outline of a seam nearly invisible against the concrete wall. A door? A hidden panel? Her pulse quickened as she knelt to inspect it. The symbol on the key seemed to echo in her mind as she slid it into the lock. Click. The sound was soft but sharp, resonating through the basement. She pressed gently, and the panel swung inward, revealing a small, owlless room beyond. The darkness inside swallowed the light from the basement, a void that seemed to breathe around her. Claire stepped in carefully, feeling the cold concrete underfoot. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, boxes and shelves crammed with papers, folders, and photographs. A desk sat in the center, cluttered with notebooks, a laptop, and an assortment of recording devices. Everything was meticulously organized, almost clinical, yet the sheer volume of information made her stomach churn. She began sorting through the files, her hands trembling as she uncovered names, dates, and places she had never heard before. Some folders contained financial transactions, others detailed movements of people, suspicious meetings, travel logs, phone records. And then she found photographs, dozens of them, showing faces of people she didn't recognize, always with Mark in the background, always in clandestine situations. Her heart raced. The hidden room was not just a place to hide trinkets or letters. It was evidence of an entire double life, a network of secrets, connections, and perhaps crimes. A sense of dread settled in her chest. She realized she had stumbled into something much larger than an affair, something dangerous. At the corner of the desk, a small digital recorder blinked, waiting. She pressed play. Mark's voice filled the room, calm, deliberate, but with a tension that sent chills down her spine. Yes, the plan is on schedule. She can't know yet. If she finds out, it could ruin everything. Claire's fingers tightened on the recorder. Everything? What is all of this? She whispered to herself. The room seemed to close in around her, shadows flickering against the walls. She backed toward a filing cabinet and opened a drawer, revealing more photographs. One fell into her hands and she gasped. The face of a young woman standing at their driveway. Recent and unmistakable, the same one from the photograph she had found earlier. Her mind raced, connecting dots that were terrifyingly clear now. Mark had not only hidden affairs, he had involved other people, orchestrated meetings, and perhaps manipulated or endangered them. Every small lie, every carefully concealed action led back to this room, to the truth she was only beginning to understand. A sudden noise, metal scraping against metal, made her spin. The basement door had shifted slightly. Someone was here. Claire's breath caught. Whoever it was, they had been watching, waiting for her to discover too much. She hugged the photographs to her chest and pressed herself against the wall, shadows concealing her as fear and adrenaline surged. In the stillness of the hidden room, Claire understood one thing clearly. The key had opened more than a door. It had unlocked a darkness in Mark's life, a world of secrets and dangers she was now entangled in, and the people who inhabited that world were not far away. The storm outside intensified, drumming against the roof, echoing the storm building in her chest. Claire realized she had to move carefully. One wrong step, and she could expose herself to dangers she couldn't yet imagine. The hidden room was only the beginning, and the next revelation might come from someone she trusted, or someone who wanted her silenced. The morning after discovering the hidden room, Claire felt as though the weight of the world had shifted onto her shoulders. Every creak in the house, every flicker of light, seemed amplified. She knew that Mark's secrets extended far beyond their home, but fear had left her desperate for clarity, someone she could trust, someone to confirm that she wasn't losing her mind. Her thoughts immediately turned to Sarah, her closest friend since college. Sarah had always been observant, level-headed, the kind of person who could cut through confusion and see the truth. Claire called her, her fingers trembling over the phone. "I need to see you," she said, her voice low, urgent. Sarah agreed, sensing the gravity in Claire's tone. They met at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Claire tried to maintain composure, but as soon as she sat down, she placed the photograph from the hidden room in front of Sarah. "I don't know who to trust anymore," Claire whispered. "I've discovered things about Mark that I can't explain, and I'm scared. He's hiding something big." Sarah's eyes widened as she examined the photograph. "Claire, this is serious. You need to be careful. People like this, they don't like being uncovered." Her tone was calm but firm, carrying the weight of experience and intuition. Claire nodded, swallowing her fear. I know, but I can't ignore it either. I need to find out the truth. I need someone to help me figure out who's involved. They spent hours talking, piecing together the fragments of Claire's discoveries. The key, the hidden room, the photographs, the whispers at the church, and Mark's confessions. Sarah's face grew more serious with every detail, her brow furrowing. Claire, some of this, it doesn't sound like just personal secrets. There's something organized here, and you've stumbled into it. Claire felt a chill. Organized. Dangerous. She realized that Mark hadn't just been hiding affairs. He had been operating in a network of lies, one that might include people they both knew, people they trusted. Her mind raced. Neighbors, co-workers, even family. Who could she turn to? Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of Sarah's phone vibrating. She glanced at it and stiffened. I'll be right back, she murmured, stepping aside. When she returned, her expression was pale. Claire, I don't want to alarm you, but I think I might be followed. Claire's stomach dropped. Followed? How? Sarah hesitated, lowering her voice. I've Ticed a car parked near my house the past 2 nights. I thought it was coincidence. But after you told me about the photographs and Mark's secrets, I'm not so sure. The two friends exchanged a look heavy with dread. Their private world, once safe, now felt exposed. Every shadow could hide a watcher. Every familiar face could conceal an enemy. Claire realized with a sinking feeling that even those closest to her might be in danger, or already compromised. As they left the cafe, Claire's thoughts swirled. She felt trapped between urgency and fear, unsure of who could be trusted. The neighborhood that once seemed peaceful now carried an undercurrent of suspicion, the feeling that eyes followed her every step. That evening, Claire returned home to find her front door slightly ajar. Panic surged through her chest. Had someone entered, or was it just her paranoia? The photograph she had clutched all day felt heavier in her hand. Claire knew one thing for certain. Her search for the truth had put her and her friends on a precarious path. Trust was fragile, and betrayal could come from anyone, anywhere. Outside, in the quiet of the suburban street, a car idled for a moment, its engine whispering in the night. Then it drove off, leaving only the echo of its presence behind. Claire's heart pounded as she realized the stakes had just risen. The network of secrets surrounding Mark and his life was closer, more threatening than she had imagined. And somewhere, beyond her sight, someone was waiting for her next move. Claire had stopped sleeping through the night. Every shadow, every sudden sound, felt amplified, a reminder that her life had shifted into a new, precarious reality. The rain had ceased, but the chill in the air mirrored the unease that had settled deep in her chest. The streets of Maplewood, once familiar and comforting, now seemed like a labyrinth of watchers, each passing car or neighbor a potential observer. It began subtly. A car she didn't recognize parked across the street for longer than necessary. At first, she said herself it was coincidence, an ordinary neighbor returning from work. But the second night, and the third, the same dark sedan appeared in the distance, engine off, lights dim. Claire began documenting every sighting, noting the license plates, the times, the patterns. Her paranoia was justified. Small details she had once ignored now seemed sinister. Footprints in the garden, the faint hum of electronics when she was alone, letters arriving with no return address. Claire understood the truth she had been avoiding. Someone was watching her. And whoever it was, they knew enough to stay hidden, to wait. Mark had promised her honesty, but the hidden room, the photographs, and the whispers at the church suggested that even he might not be fully transparent. Claire's mind churned with possibilities, each darker than the last. She began altering her routines, different routes to work, varied grocery stores, changing the times she left the house, but still, she felt the weight of eyes tracking her. One evening, as she returned from the office, Claire noticed something unsettling. A figure standing near her mailbox, shifting nervously when they saw her. She froze, heart hammering. The person raised a hand in a vague, almost casual wave, then slipped into the shadows before she could get a closer look. Fear and adrenaline surged together, but Claire also felt a grim resolve. She could not run from this. She needed answers. She began to set up her own surveillance, discreet cameras at the front door, recording devices around the house, and logs of all unusual activity. Every image, every movement, became a piece of a larger puzzle. Claire realized the severity of her situation. Mark's secrets weren't isolated. They involved others, people who might resort to extreme measures to keep the truth hidden. Late one night, Claire reviewed footage from the front porch camera. The clarity of the images made her stomach twist. A man, masked in shadows, approached the house, lingering near the hidden room's entrance. He paused, peering inside as if searching for something, or someone. Claire's hands shook, gripping the edge of the table. This was no longer a game of suspicion. This was real, tangible, and dangerous. Her phone buzzed. An anonymous message appeared. "You shouldn't have looked into this. Now it's too late." The words were brief, cold, and threatening. Claire's chest tightened, and for the first time, she considered the full scope of the danger she was in. Whoever sent the message had access to her life in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. She thought of Sarah, of the stranger next door, of the church whispers. Each connection deepened the web of risk. Claire realized she could trust no one fully, not even those she had believed to be allies. Her next moves would have to be calculated, precise, or the consequences could be catastrophic. The night grew darker, and the shadows in her home seemed to shift and lengthen. Claire understood that her investigation had crossed a line. The surveillance wasn't just evidence anymore. It was a warning. Someone was actively monitoring her, waiting for her next step, ready to intervene. And in that tense electric silence, Claire made a decision. She would confront Mark, not just for answers, but for survival. The truth was close, but so was danger. One wrong move could change everything. The quiet of Maplewood was deceptive. It hid threats, eyes, and secrets in every corner. Claire knew one thing with absolute clarity. The next revelation, the confession, might not come from words. It might come from a place she hadn't yet dared to look. Claire waited in the dimly lit living room, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant tick of the wall clock marking time with agonizing slowness. Mark had agreed to meet her there, finally willing to explain, to confess everything. The hidden room, the photographs, the whispers at the church, the surveillance, it all had to be addressed, and Claire's heart pounded with anticipation, dread, and the lingering sting of betrayal. When Mark appeared, his expression was a mix of exhaustion and guilt. He avoided her gaze at first, running a hand through his hair. "Claire," he said quietly. She held up a hand. "No. Let me speak first. I know there's more than just an affair. I've seen the hidden room, the files, the photos. I know about the surveillance, about the whispers. I need the truth, Mark. All of it." He flinched as though her words had struck a physical blow. For a moment, the tension was suffocating. Then, slowly, he sank into the couch beside her, hands clasped tightly in his lap. His voice was low, almost trembling. You deserve to know everything, he began. I've been hiding a life you could never imagine. One that's dangerous and, yes, immoral. The key, the hidden room, the church, it's all connected. I didn't want you involved, but the longer I kept it secret, the more complicated it became. Claire's eyes filled with tears, her chest tightening. Mark, why? Why hide all this? And why involve other people? He swallowed hard. I was greedy, foolish. I thought I could manage it all. The young woman you've seen, she's part of a network. People I trusted, people I shouldn't have. The meetings, the transactions, the arrangements. It started small, but it spiraled. And I realized too late that I couldn't control it without putting you at risk. Claire's mind reeled. The hidden world she had stumbled into was far more dangerous than she had imagined. Are we in danger, Mark? Am I in danger? He nodded slowly, his eyes shadowed with regret. Yes. I tried to shield you, but someone knows you're involved now. That's why you've been followed, why the photographs appeared, why the stranger, Lisa, has been watching. She's not the enemy, she's a messenger. Someone trying to warn you before it gets worse. Claire exhaled sharply, the weight of his words pressing down on her. She had always believed that home was safe, that love was a shield. Now, that illusion was gone. Every detail, every secret, every deception had opened a door into a world of shadows. Mark's confession continued, each revelation darker than the last. He spoke of deals, of hidden alliances, of threats made and avoided. The extent of his double life was staggering, a web of lies stretching into places Claire had never thought possible. Church leaders, neighbors, even local businesses. Each connection seemed deliberate, dangerous, and now potentially exposed. When he finished, silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Claire stared at him, trying to absorb the enormity of the truth. Her mind spun, connecting dots she hadn't realized were connected. The hidden room, the photographs, the surveillance. It was all part of a carefully constructed life that had nothing to do with the marriage she thought she knew. Finally, she whispered, "What do we do now?" Mark's eyes met hers, a mix of fear and resolve. "We protect ourselves, Claire. Carefully. Every step must be calculated. Some of the people involved won't hesitate to act if they sense weakness. We have to be smart and cautious." Claire nodded slowly, understanding the gravity. The path ahead was treacherous, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a measure of clarity. They were in this together, at least for now, navigating a dangerous world built on secrets and lies. But as the shadows deepened around them, Claire knew one thing, with chilling certainty: revelations were only the beginning. The danger was far from over, and someone, or something, was already waiting for their next move. The night felt alive with menace. Rain pattered softly against the windows, a constant reminder that even in the quietest moments, the world outside could be unforgiving. Claire sat in the living room, the remnants of Mark's confession still echoing in her mind. The hidden room, the photographs, the surveillance, the whispered warnings at the church. They were no longer fragments. They were pieces of a vast, dark puzzle. And tonight, she would confront the shadows directly. Mark stood by the window, glancing at the empty street. His face was pale, tense, but resolute. "We can't wait any longer," he said quietly. "The longer we do, the more dangerous it becomes. Someone knows everything now, and they're watching." Claire's hand trembled as she clutched the key she had carried with her since the discovery of the hidden room. It was more than a key. It was a symbol of the darkness they were about to enter, of the truths they had avoided for far too long. "Where do we start?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Mark hesitated. We follow the network. Every meeting, every transaction, every person I've involved, it all leads to one place. If we want answers, we have to confront it. The thought sent a shiver down Claire's spine. Confrontation was dangerous, but avoidance had only brought fear closer. She nodded, determination hardening her features. Tonight, the shadows would speak, whether they were ready or not. They left the house, moving cautiously through the dimly lit streets. Every corner seemed to hold unseen watchers, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. Mark guided her to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, a place he had avoided mentioning until the last possible moment. This is where it all connects, he said. Everyone involved gathers here at times. If we're lucky, we'll find the answers we need, and the people responsible for the threats. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and silent, its metal siding glinting faintly under the streetlights. Claire's heart pounded in her chest. Inside, the shadows were thicker, heavier, as if they carried secrets of their own. They slipped in quietly, eyes adjusting to the dim light, and immediately noticed movement. Figures huddled in corners, exchanging documents, whispering urgently. Claire's stomach churned. This wasn't just a network. It was an organized, dangerous operation, one that had woven itself into the lives of people they had trusted. And now, she and Mark were standing in the middle of it, exposed and vulnerable. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the cavernous space. "Mark, I didn't expect you here." A man stepped forward from the shadows, his features sharp, his tone calm but authoritative. Claire recognized him from the photographs in the hidden room, the orchestrator, the one pulling strings from behind the scenes. Mark's jaw tightened. "We need to end this," he said firmly. "No more lies, no more secrets. It's over." The man smiled, slow and calculated, and gestured to the others around him. "You think it's that simple? You've seen only fragments. The shadows don't reveal their full truth until it's too late." Claire felt a surge of fear, but also clarity. Every choice, every hidden path, every secret had led to this moment. She understood now that the darkness wasn't just around her, it was woven into the very fabric of their lives, and if she wanted the truth, she would have to face it, no matter the cost. As figures emerged from the shadows, documents and evidence clutched in their hands, Claire realized something chilling. The hidden truths were only the beginning. Someone, or multiple people, had been orchestrating everything, monitoring them, anticipating their moves. The warehouse was alive with tension, the past colliding with the present and the future uncertain. Claire's hand tightened around Mark's. The path forward was perilous but necessary. They had stepped fully into the shadows, and there was no turning back. In that charged electric silence, the first pieces of the network's secrets began to unravel, and the true extent of deception revealed itself. Claire returned to the house at dawn, the early morning light spilling through the windows and illuminating corners she had long ignored. The storm outside had passed, leaving the streets wet and glistening, but the turbulence inside her heart remained. The warehouse confrontation had revealed part of the network, exposing lies and manipulations that had haunted her for weeks. Yet she knew the truth was not fully revealed. It lingered in the walls of their home, in the shadows, waiting for recognition. Mark walked beside her silently, carrying the weight of his own guilt. He had confessed everything, every hidden meeting, every coded transaction, every deception, but the relief was tempered by the realization that some secrets could not be undone. Some actions could not be reversed. The house, once a symbol of safety, now felt like a repository of hidden truths. Every room held memories of lies, every closet a secret. Claire moved slowly through the rooms, her eyes scanning familiar furniture and walls that had witnessed betrayal. The living room, where she had first confronted Mark, the bedroom, where the hidden panel had been discovered, The study, where the files and photographs had been stored, all spaces that once felt mundane were now charged with meaning. Each object seemed to whisper a fragment of the past, revealing itself in the quiet stillness of the morning. Her hand lingered on the key, now dull and worn from use, the small metal object a symbol of both discovery and danger. She thought of Lisa, the stranger next door, whose presence had been at once unsettling and protective. She thought of Sarah, who had stood steadfast through uncertainty and fear. And she thought of Mark, whose confessions had begun to unravel a carefully constructed double life. Claire paused in the hallway, looking at the staircase leading to the second floor. Her eyes fell on the hidden compartment once more, the small door that had held the secrets of Mark's network. She understood now that the house itself had been a silent witness to deception, a keeper of truths too dangerous to reveal until she was ready. And in that understanding, she found clarity. Some secrets, though uncovered, would remain a part of the past, shaping the present but not defining the future. Mark approached, voice low and unsteady. "I can't change what I did, Claire, but I want to try to make this right. If you're willing to stay, we can rebuild. Carefully. Cautiously." Claire met his gaze, weighing the words, the confession, the danger, and the fragile hope that lingered in the air. She understood that trust, once broken, could be mended only with transparency, vigilance, and time. The house, now stripped of its hidden shadows, could become a place of renewal, but only if the lessons of the past were acknowledged and respected. She exhaled slowly, letting the weight of weeks of fear and discovery ease slightly. The streets of Maplewood beyond the windows were quiet, ordinary once more, but she knew the events of recent weeks had left an indelible mark. The hidden truths, the shadows, the network, they were part of the fabric of her life now, reminders that appearances could never be trusted fully, that even the most familiar spaces could conceal danger. Walking through. It's the rooms one last time. Claire touched the surfaces, observing the way sunlight danced across the floors. In the study, she placed the files and photographs back in the compartment, not out of desire to hide, but as a recognition that some truths were heavier than immediate disclosure allowed. The house, with all its secrets, had survived. She would survive too, wiser, stronger, and forever changed. In the end, Claire understood a haunting truth. The quietest house on Maple Street had the loudest secrets. Some truths were necessary, some revelations inevitable, and some shadows best remembered, but not carried. And as she closed the door behind her, she realized that life would never be simple again, but it could still hold honesty, love, and cautious hope